So Amazon Prime Day is coming up. I know that we don't necessarily love Amazon because Jeff Bezos, but I know Amazon Prime Day is coming up, and I just looked up Amazon Prime in Canada, and unfortunately, Amazon Prime Day in Canada is canceled or postponed due to COVID. And I feel like a child who's gotten their candy taken away from them or something. I feel like I'm being reprimanded. Not into it. Don't like it. So please, everybody, go get their vaccines so that we can have Amazon Prime Day. Anyways, of course, what's up? This is the HackerNoon podcast, and my name is Amy Tom. Today, I am joined with Anil Kumar, who is the Director of Project Management at Couchbase. How are you doing, Anil?
Hey, I'm doing good, Amy. And thanks for having me on your show today.
No worries. Today, we are going to get into some information about Couchbase and Kubernetes and also cloud strategy. But before we get into that, I want to ask you a few questions about you. How long have you been the project manager at Couchbase?
So Amy, sorry, I'll just make one correction. So it's product management, but yeah, so I've been in
product management, sorry.
So I've been with the Couchbase for 8+ years. And when I joined Couchbase, we were maybe 35 people in the company. And today we are more than 600 people. Yeah. So
wait, how long ago was that?
It was 8 years back, a very tiny company in Mountain View, California. And it was, for me, it was a big change. And before coming to Couchbase, I was in Microsoft. And we all know Microsoft is a big company. And even a smallest team in Microsoft is in the size of like 60 or 70 people, right? So it was a big change for me to join a big company, from a big company to a small, tiny company. But the journey has been amazing. Got to learn many things and help shape the product in multiple ways. My journey in Couchbase.
So did you say 35, number 35 you were?
Yeah, I think not specifically, but maybe in the 30s.
Okay.
Yeah, 30s or 40s.
So now, are there other people that you worked with from the beginning that are still at Couchbase as well?
Yeah, we still have a lot of folks. That makes me actually very happy because especially the core engineering team we started building from the beginning. Most of those guys are still there. And so I'm proud and happy that we all share the same goal and same passion for building the first-class database. And so that's actually makes me even stick around here for some more long time because it's like, it's all the people and family we have created here.
Mm-hmm. 8 years is a long time for one company. Yeah. The longest I have worked at one company was almost 3 years. And by the end of it, I was quite honestly bored. So what motivated you to continue and to grow within Couchbase?
Yeah, and by the way, this was not the first time. So I worked in Microsoft for 7+ years. So
oh my gosh!
So
okay, you're a long-termer. I see.
But mainly it was like with the Couchbase, when I joined, although I joined as a product manager, but I was put on to doing I was changing my hats every second in my opinion, but it was like, I did the training, I played a role of solution architect, and then also help our CEO do some legal stuff. So I was doing multitasking, multiple things, which was great experience, right? One of the reasons why I joined Couchbase was mainly to get that kind of experience and exposure. And it was the right fit. And but from there on, we obviously started building team, and we have now full-fledged legal team, full-fledged partner team, solution architect team. But I can still always go back and say, hey, I remember those early days. I talked to those customers. I was the solution architect. The innovation we have been doing is amazing, in my opinion. The world-class team and the clear differentiation in terms of product. Every feature we think through and make sure that these are uniquely built and clearly differentiates in the market, right? And one of the things which I'm passionate about is the customer obsession we have in the company. So it's all about customer, the challenges with the customer. What solution are we going to build? How is it going to solve the customer challenge?
And do you talk to the customers directly as the product manager, as
yes,
director?
Like 100% of the time, I'd say.
Okay.
So I have a great relationship with our customers, and they trust me, and I think that makes me even very happy. And whenever I tweet or put a blog or post something on the LinkedIn, I can certainly say most of the customers do respond and say they congratulate me or talk about
Yeah, because they know you because you've been there for
know
8
me.
years.
Yeah.
How many people do you manage?
So at this point, I have only one person I'm managing.
Okay.
At one point, I had a team of 3 or 4 people. But as we transition there, when we see one of the things which we have done also in Couchbase is we encourage people to move around if they like to explore another area. And in some cases, we say, hey, you're a great fit for this team, and you have some creative ideas, and you'll be valuable in this team. And so we do transition them.
Okay. Because I'm just wondering, maybe this is a selfish question for me, but with HackerNoon, I started working at HackerNoon maybe 6-7 months ago at this point, and we have grown the team almost 2x since I've been here. And so my question to you is, how did you grow within this team when so many new employees and new people were coming, when you're used to wearing so many hats and now you are maybe a little more siloed?
Yeah, no, truly. I think at one point I would remember everybody's name. So it was like, you could reach out and be like, I know this guy and I know he does. But yeah, so now the team is bigger, and it's not possible to know everyone in the company. But it's one way we have, at least the idea for me was we have the product team concept. So each of those products we build, there's a product team. And this is a core product team, right? So it includes engineering, QE, product management, project management, and then also support. So it becomes a team which is solving this customer problem, and there's no, so there's no ambiguity, or there's no, the focus is very clear, right? It's and everyone is aligned on the same goal. And so this product team concept is what I really love. And then for the multiple products which I manage, I work on this product team concept.
Okay, yes. So let's talk about the actual work that you do, the product that you're managing, or I guess really what it means to be a product manager. I feel it's a vague title. So what are you managing? Tell me more about that.
So product manager is more of I would say there's different terms like product owner, or someone we call it as an entrepreneur, or the mini CEO of the product. So there are many terms we use. They are truly enablers, right? So it's when you think about from the conceptual of the idea, from the idea to execution and bringing it to the market and making it successful. So there is the entire life cycle. And the product manager's role, it's a tough job, to be honest with you, because you have to have, you need to have a lot of research and understanding of the industry, customer pain points, really deeply understand those, and then start building the product, right? So you have to have a business justification, see how this is aligned with the company's vision, and also think about how this product is going to grow. So that, and then again, convincing engineering is not easy. Obviously, our engineers are the smartest engineers, and making sure that we are utilizing their time and resource and for the right product and the right capabilities, right? So, and taking through that execution, getting it out of the door, and then making it successful, which is where you'll be working with the field and support and sales to talk to the customers and adopt and then come back with the feedback. So it's a full-time, make sure you are truly a product owner. Yeah.
So would you say you're the bridge between development and business side?
Actually speaking, you're a bridge for everything. So right from the customer, engineering, field, sales, legal, you name it, pretty much you're a bridge for everything.
Okay, then how do you not let people walk all over you?
Yeah, it's as I said, you have to. So once you start working as a product manager, you will learn on the job, but you will start learning those skills. People management is very important. Domain expertise is also really important, right? So you need to know the domain really well. And then obviously, as I said, you'll be working with the broad spectrum of all the people. So you need to know what they expect and who are the stakeholders. What's their expectation is. So you have to, as you start working on this as a product management, you'll start getting those skills.
Would you say that you're a natural people person?
I think so.
Yeah, because I think that to do that job, especially to manage all those shareholders and moving parts, you need to be really good at talking to people.
Talking to people, building relationship is
relationship
very,
building.
very important.
Yeah, especially with the customers, like you were talking about, engaging with them on LinkedIn and things like that, building engagement and relationship with the customers. I feel that it would be more challenging to do that if you were maybe like more introverted or less people focused, maybe more like a developer mindset kind of deal. What was your educational background in?
I did my master's and bachelor's both in computer science.
So it wasn't in like a business realm. It really was in like the technical side of things.
Yes. Before becoming a product manager, that transition happened in Microsoft. I was actually an engineer, like a software design engineer. But mainly my domain expertise was on the database and database data replication and the scalability and all of that. And then from there, I transitioned to program manager, the role in Microsoft. And from there, when I joined Couchbase, it was product manager.
Okay. So do you think that if you could go back and do it again, would you have gone into more of the business route first, then get into technical? Or are you happy that you did the technical and then went more into learning about business?
Yeah, no, I think for any industry, it is important to have that foundation. And I feel like it was a right thing to do for me was to learn the foundation very well, right? So, because if I'm going to build a product so it was important to understand like to become an engineer, you would know how to build the product first. And then from there, you start looking at like, are we solving the right set of problems for the customer and what's the business side of it? And so then you move into the business side of it. So that's, in my opinion, I think that was a good transition for me.
Yeah, makes sense. Cool. Okay, so I want to ask you about Kubernetes, about resource consumption, about cloud portability. How did you learn all of that? On the job?
I did learn on the job. And the main thing in fact, one of the things which I've done, so give me 1 second. So I learned it on the job, and it was mainly, this was a cutting edge technology back in 2016, 2017. And I was very interested in learning about this technology because there was definitely a kind of a hype cycle, which was like with containers and Docker and stuff, but Kubernetes was emerging. And I think there was a increasing, like this open source project was getting a lot of interest from the developers. And I started learning about it. And in fact, I became so interested that in fact, when we launched a product in 2018, I wrote a book on the Kubernetes. So, so it was good complementary to the product launch because I wanted to make the launch successful. The idea was the Couchbase on Kubernetes it was first in the industry to build a complex distributed database running on a Kubernetes technology. And so I think that's, as I said, I was very much interested in this in these technologies.
Okay, so you're saying like back in 2017, 2016, it was common to make a complex system based on Kubernetes structure.
Yeah.
What is the trend moving towards now?
So so in this case, let me tell you a bit of a short story. I think it will be important to set the context here.
Okay.
So if I look back in 2013, 2014, and again in those years, there was, as I said, there was a hype cycle with the containers and Docker container, especially. Those conferences were had a attendance of in thousands and stuff. But so you can see there was a lot of interest from the developers who wanted to adopt this technology. And those were really a great fit for stateless applications. When I say stateless, these are your applications which doesn't have any persistence data, right? So there is no storage for those. But when you think about database, it's a stateful application, which is you need to persist the data onto the disk, right? And so there was initial hindrance or the skepticism about adopting containers for database. And so this is, as I said, back in 2013, 2014. You'll see a lot of articles were published and from really some of the industry people, which was like, hey, is database a good fit for containers? We should not run database on a containers. There were those kind of articles published.
Yeah.
And fast forward.
But that was 2013 then?
That was 2013, 2014, right?
Okay.
And even till 2016. Fast forward 2019, the same folks or even the other folks started writing the articles. yes, the database is a good fit for containers, but maybe not for production. And then now 2021, the database are going mainstream on containers and Kubernetes. Right? So why? Because yes, the maturity of the technology itself and in terms of the what we had available at that time, yes, there was a lot of those. It required the maturity and all the stuff to come together. So, but our journey in this case was like, we in fact started way ahead of other databases. Our co-founder of the company, Dustin Selling, at the time, he was the one of the highest contributor to Memcache project. He, in fact, was doing a experiment of running Couchbase on Docker container when the Docker itself was in the alpha state, like in the point.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And so it goes back to 2013. And in 2016, we took one step ahead and then we launched Couchbase on containers as a production deployable, right? So it was ready for the production. Most of the customers did not want to go run Couchbase on containers, but our goal was like we wanted to stand as a thought leaders in the industry. Right? And from 2016 to 2018, we launched the Couchbase on Kubernetes. And now, if I look at, we've been praised as one of the thought leaders in the database for adopting the containers. And this service has become a fastest growing service in Couchbase. And there's a huge excitement in the customers, right? So you can see that it was a vision which we had from a few years back. And we have been trying to work on that vision and become a cloud native database now.
Right. Okay. And I guess why Kubernetes though? Because I know that I talked to Matt Ingrinthrone about this a little bit as well in one of our previous episodes, but why would you use Kubernetes? Because it's complex, right?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. When we first started using the commodity computing, there are many overheads associated with managing the data center, like power and cooling, maintaining the network switches and routers. And then the servers and storage themselves were a little more complex. So what changed was the automated orchestration started happening, and that made more efficient. But in the end, it was the managed cloud that was the real game changer in my opinion. Right? So the physical resources replaced by virtual and and could be created with the click of a button. So the benefits were better resource utilization and vastly improved the time to market. Right? But without the traditional procurement and leading the cost savings and stuff. So, however, these virtual machines, they still needed a management. They needed security policies, auditing, and monitoring. What now coming into the Kubernetes, it's a next giant leap forward, right? It's delegating these requirements to the cloud operator, leaving the business to concentrate on creating and deploying their applications. Right? And I think that's where the Kubernetes has become for the last few years, it has become a big giant leap forward in terms of technology. Right?
But that's where I want to layer on the aspect of like cloud portability, cloud strategy too. Does it not get even more complicated in that instance if I am using like a hybrid cloud or a cross cloud strategy?
Yeah. No, that's a good question. In my opinion, the Kubernetes may be complex, but it is not unnecessarily complex, right? So what that I mean by that is like, in fact, the complexity of container orchestration has led to the advancement of Kubernetes as a leader in like simplifying and deploying and management of the containers. So relatively speaking, whatever complexity is attributed to Kubernetes is significantly lower than what we find when attempting to deploy application at scale with the plain old Docker or Docker container. So it is solving those problems in my opinion. But coming to the question of the cloud portability, when it came into the existence, the Kubernetes, it was considered as the container orchestration, but it has evolved much more. It has become a cloud agnostic, infrastructure agnostic solution. It can be, it's highly extensible, so you can extend and build your application on the Kubernetes. But mainly customers love the Kubernetes mainly for when you think about when you build a application on Kubernetes. Now the CNCF, which is the Cloud Native Computing Foundation, has this certified Kubernetes platform, and every Kubernetes vendor who wants to have a Kubernetes service has to go through the certification. And so that certification shows that they are compatible. All the APIs which are available through the Kubernetes API, Kubernetes open source Kubernetes are certified on those platforms, right? So what that means is that if I build my application today, I should be able to port this upon the open source Kubernetes to run on any of the managed Kubernetes service, and it should work fine.
How long does that process take?
So it should not take much because, like as I said, the APIs are exactly the same, right? Yes, each cloud has their own, although they do add some more capabilities on top of it. They have different policies for security, like some cloud date and the security patches much often than others. But the idea is that you should be build once and run anywhere is the core idea.
Okay. I wanted to ask you about the companies that operate on this kind of structure and system. And I guess I want to know specifically the trend towards moving to the system and just the fact that you mentioned that this is now the most trending product that Couchbase has, right? Or service. What were people on before moving to this and why would they have moved? You know what I mean? I want to know what is a common structure alternative to this that this would be better.
Okay, sure. I think that's a fair question. Before this whole containers and Kubernetes, typically customers would deploy Couchbase. They are very much performance conscious. They will be deploying it on the bare metal itself, like on the physical machine, right?
Yeah.
So that they can get the highest and best performance. But if they are if they're looking at optimizing the cost and if they have multiple applications running, so they would deploy it on a virtualized environment, like on VM instances. So in both the cases, so they would typically automating those database operations. They would write scripts, right? So they would write those best practices scripts to manage the Couchbase cluster, provisioning, scaling, maintenance, and upgrade, and all of those operations. So they would write those scripts. And so they would maintain those scripts, right? So there would be so you'd see that typically what we seen in our customer base is they will become a Couchbase champions. There will be 1 or 2 or 3, 4 folks who become Couchbase champions who knows Couchbase in and out. They will start building those scripts.
They write the scripts themselves.
Those scripts and they can use Chef, Ansible, Puppet, or whatever those tools they have to basically automate those operations. And that was the trend, or that was the case for last many years. Right? And what has changed now is because in this case, this Couchbase champions, now they have to build those scripts, maintain those, and then if there is a new version comes, they have to go and again update those scripts. So there is a lot of activity which they have to do. Right? With containers and Kubernetes, what happens is we embed the best practices within the containers itself. And with the autonomous operator for Kubernetes, now we have automated all our best practices. So basically, we are taking away that job which the DevOps or the database engineer was doing. We're taking away that job and we are simplifying it. So the experts of Couchbase who built the Couchbase product, they provide those best practices guidelines, and we are automating those best practice guidelines. So these are some really complex operations we do. For example, if we have a 100-node Couchbase cluster and you want to upgrade this Couchbase cluster, and this is a mission critical application, so you want to make sure there's no downtime, and if there's any glitches, how do we handle those? So all of that, the customer had to handle this before. Now with the operator, we automate the whole operation. So it takes care of all those edge case scenarios, and with our experience working with customers, we have included those best practices guidelines. Right? So in my opinion, it reduces the operational cost significantly. So we have got quotes from customers that it has reduced the operational cost by 90 to 95%. And
what kind of industries are these customers in?
They span across multiple industries. We have customers in the travel, in the retail, as well as in financial industries. And so we have multiple. And again, as I said, when I say this is the fastest growing, the customer adoption has been significantly higher on.
Okay, and I guess maybe this is a dumb question, but because I think one of the benefits of Couchbase, I believe, is auto scalability. But I guess when people are on this Kubernetes structure, do they have to worry about how large their database becomes or how much querying they're doing?
So, and if you're asking to a database person, and again, in general, any database person will tell you it's the domain expertise. Like someone who has worked in this database knows really well. Now, what are the complexities of scaling up? It's not just I want to add more capacity and I'll throw some more nodes to the cluster, because that has its own implications. So when you add nodes to the cluster, we have to rebalance, we have to basically redistribute the data. And depending on the size of the data, if you have terabytes of data sitting on each node, now we have to redistribute all the data across all those new nodes, right? it utilizes network. If you have a heavy traffic coming in, you have to make sure that it doesn't impact the incoming traffic. So there's a lot of intelligence built into that. So what used to happen before is like most of our customers, in this case, DevOps or database engineers, they learned over job time or like what stats to look at, what metrics to look at, and based on those and their experience, they would basically scale when the cluster is in not non-peak time frame, and then they will scale up the cluster. But it required a lot of intelligence, right? It's a lot of thinking about like when to scale and how to complete this whole operation. What we have done, and this is where I think we are becoming more and more autonomous database, is like we taking those complex operations and fully automating them. And so in our recent release, which actually went live yesterday, the Couchbase Autonomous Operator 2.2, we launched the auto scaling of Couchbase services. And so we're giving this capability to those DevOps engineers or the database engineers. They can put their those business logics, which is, I want to scale my cluster when I hit some threshold. Whether it could be a system like CPU, memory, storage, network, disk, whatever, or it could be like, hey, I'm anticipating that I'm going to get more traffic and I need to add more capacity. So whatever those metrics, they can put those thresholds, and the system, the Couchbase operator, will automatically scale up their services.
How did that differ from what you had before 2.2 though?
Before we scaled the cluster, it was manual operation in some sense. Like you would basically say, I'm looking at all these metrics and I want to scale up my cluster. You'd come and basically make a change in your YAML file, which is a configuration file. And this, when the operator sees that there's a change in the configuration, it will go and scale up the cluster. But it was not fully automated, right? It was semi-automated in some sense, right? Okay. So now it's like once you define those thresholds, and you don't, and then the rest of the things, which is like operator will manage, look at those metrics, and then when those thresholds are hit, it will go and scale up the cluster.
Okay. And is it the same with auto down scaling?
Yes,
it's
fully elastic now, right? So you can scale up and then scale down. Ideally, for production use cases, obviously we tell customers it's a database, it's not a stateless application. So when you're scaling down, make sure that it doesn't impact your SLAs and impact your performance, because when you're scaling down, obviously it's basically reducing the capacity, but also there is a redistribution of the data again. So it might impact your data. But there are services in Couchbase like Query, which is the nickel service, that is a stateless. And yes, you can scale up and scale down depending on your business needs.
Okay, great. So what advice would you have for a company or a business leader who's looking to potentially move their data operations into Kubernetes structure?
Yeah, that's a great question. Been talking to many of our customers, and from last few years, initially they said they wanted to adopt Couchbase on containers and Kubernetes for use cases for test and development initially, right? And then that changed to use cases which are production use cases, but not mission critical, small use cases. But then now I have seen customers who are adopting this for even production use cases, mission critical use cases, because of all the confidence they have got through the platform. But mainly it's what business problem are you trying to solve, right? Again, as I said earlier, if you're already modernizing your platform, you have already you're already picked the containers and Kubernetes for your applications, and you have containerized your applications, you're running your microservices architecture on containers and Kubernetes, then you want to, in that case, it makes total sense to run your database also on the same architecture, because then you can remove that impedance mismatch. Your DevOps can now manage both stateless and stateful application together on the same platform. And it's in terms of business, it will be faster time to market and ability to consolidation of multiple platforms. So it's it helps in multiple ways. And also, as we talked about, one of your goals is about being on have a hybrid cloud strategy or multi-cloud strategy. This Kubernetes will significantly help there.
Okay, so ask yourself, what is my business goal, essentially? Yeah. Cool. All right, great. All right, Anil, thank you very much for coming on the podcast. I appreciate your time. I thought this was great.
Yeah, thank you so much. And as I said, thanks for having me in your show.
Oh, the one thing I want to ask you too before we go, when did you release your book?
It was released back in 2018 August. So when we launched our product 1.0, I wanted to basically make a splash to have a marketing splash, and so we launched this book. It became the number 3 top book in 2019, but obviously it's been 2 years now. But at one point, it was Book Authority gave it awarded as a number 3 book in the Kubernetes.
Oh, that's so exciting! Congratulations. Okay, great. What's the book called?
It's called Couchbase on Kubernetes. It is available on our Couchbase site as well as
very creative. It's just a very creative title. Okay, great. Anil, where can we find you and what you're working on online?
Yeah, definitely. You can find me on LinkedIn. I'm active on LinkedIn as well as on Twitter. Yeah, and you can definitely reach out to me at my email address, anil@couchbase.com.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Amy.
If you like this episode of the HackerNoon podcast, don't forget to do all the things, like it, share it, subscribe to it, share it with your friends. This episode was edited by audio wizard Alex, hosted by me, Amy Tom, and produced by HackerNoon. Stay weird, and I'll see you on the internet. Goodbye.